All right, Frank, we're now live streaming.
Great. Good afternoon, and welcome to this community investment meeting regarding the ARPA RFP review and other local investment opportunities. My name is Frank McGowan. I'm with the City of Asheville Finance Department. Beth, can you take us to the next slide, please? So our agenda for today, first I'm going to do some introductions. We're going to talk about the objectives for today's meeting. We'll give an overview of the American Rescue Plan Act funding, eligible projects, evaluation criteria, who can apply, and the schedule. We will take questions from attendees and talk through next steps, and then I'll turn it over to Dawa Hitch in our Communications and Public Engagement department to talk about, or to introduce other folks on this call who will talk about other funding opportunities. So we want to invite questions from attendees regarding the ARPA RFP. We're going to capture that information and provide responses via addenda that will be posted on October 20th. We'll share those other funding opportunities, both at the city and through Buncombe County. And as I said, I'm Frank McGowan. I'm with the City of Asheville Finance Department. I'm also going to introduce Kim Marmon-Sachs. She is also with the Finance Department, and she is the City of Asheville's ARPA Project Manager. I believe we have Brad Branham, the City Attorney, on this call, Dawa Hitch with CAPE. And with that, I'm going to present the next 5 slides, and then we will open it up for questions. Next slide, please. So this may be redundant. I think everybody is probably aware of this, but we want to make sure that we're well informed. What is the American Rescue Plan Act, also known as ARPA? It's a federal program to respond to the economic and public health impacts of COVID-19. It is intended to contain the impacts on communities, residents, and businesses, and lay a foundation for a strong and equitable recovery. And the City of Asheville has received $26.2 million in ARPA funding. The city is issuing this request for proposals to identify projects that are eligible to receive this one-time funding. Next slide, please. So in terms of the types of projects that can be funded, this is at a high level. The categories that were approved by City Council for funding include affordable housing, domestic violence prevention and assistance, food systems, care for aging residents, homelessness services, city infrastructure, small business recovery, climate change, workforce development, and community communication. So this is the high-level description. Within the RFP itself, there is much more specific language about eligibility, and you need to read that is pulled straight from Treasury guidance. So I also want to talk about the project evaluation criteria. Proposals are also are going to be evaluated on the following criteria, and those include equitable community impact at 40%, project plan and evaluation also at 40%, and an organization's qualifications at 20%. We will have a more involved scoring rubric that is being developed, but this is the basis for that scoring. Next slide, please. So who can apply? I think everyone probably knows this. Governmental entities or nonprofit organizations, and the proposal must deliver services to Asheville residents. Next slide, please. The RFP schedule is listed here. I do want to note some updates to this schedule. Obviously, we issued the RFP on September 27th. Today's our community meeting to talk about the RFP and other local investment opportunities. You still have time to submit written questions. So after you hear this information and hear some of the responses, you have until 5 p.m. on October the 18th to submit those written questions. The city will compile all written questions and issue an addenda posted to our bid page on October 20th by 5 p.m. that day. Here's the update. You have until November 15th at 5 p.m. to submit your proposals. So this is a recent decision, but we're extending the submission date out by about 2 weeks. So you've got a little bit more time after you have a chance to review the addenda when it's issued on the 20th. Contract awards, this date is also shifting out just a little bit. We're expecting our first award dates or initial awards to be around January 9th, 2022. But we also may make some awards on a rolling basis. And then contract effective dates for those that are awarded, that's going to be determined after the awards, and those will also be determined sort of on a rolling basis. And we're doing our best to adhere to this schedule, but we've had some adjustments just within the last 24 hours. Next slide, please. So the main purpose of this meeting is to capture the questions from attendees. We do have a few general questions that we think we can answer now. And if some of the questions submitted at this time, if they're fairly straightforward, we feel we can answer those. But we will be compiling all the questions in one document and submit that for the RFP. What we're going to ask of you is please submit you can either raise your hand and we'll call on you to ask your question, or you can simply place it in the chat and we will take those one at a time. But before we start taking those questions, I think some of the few that I can answer, we've had a number on eligibility, and on pages 8 and 9 of the RFP, that's where the more specific eligibility and definitions of the various types of or categories of projects that can be funded are listed. Obviously, until we see your proposal, we're not going to know whether it fully fits that criteria or not. So we'd ask you to review that. We will try to respond to some of those specific questions that we've received thus far on eligibility. But as I mentioned before, these are pulled directly from the Treasury guidance on pages 8 and 9. We also had a question regarding whether partial awards are permitted. And what we have determined is that the short answer is yes. However, we need you to be specific about what your entire award or what your entire proposal would encompass, and if a scaled back version and thus a scaled back budget request for that award would be considered. Include that in the narrative of your proposal, and we would like you to make a note in the budget template. There's a section for notes there as well. So we don't want to determine for you whether you can make your project work or not with a reduced budget. If we'd like you to request what you feel you need to request, but if there's a scaled back version and you want to submit that as an option, please specify that in your narrative. One other question we've had is for some clarity about nonprofit organizations. What does that mean? There's some questions about 501c4s and 501c6s. All nonprofit organizations are eligible to apply provided they have federal government nonprofit status and that the proposal would be delivering services to City of Asheville residents. Brad Branham, is there anything more that needs to be added to that piece?
Thanks, Frank. I don't think so. I will say, as a good reminder here, as well as other parts of the rules that we're laying out, we are working under currently interim guidance provided by the Federal Treasury. We haven't received the final guidance yet, nor have any of the recipients. So some of these rules are still somewhat in flux. Some of the questions have yet to be fully answered. So we're doing our best at this point to give the best information that we can. Those may be evolving as we go through this process. But as to nonprofits, I think the list of potential nonprofit entities is going to be pretty expansive. We're working currently to make sure that that is going to be the case and we don't have any limitations. But I would certainly encourage all nonprofits to assume that they are going to be eligible.
Okay, we have some questions in the chat. Let me see if these are some that we have ready answers for. And if there's anybody that needs to raise their hand or wants to raise their hand, that's also an option. I can't see everybody on my screen at the moment, however. For that first question, Peggy Weil, I think we may need to answer that one in the addenda. Likewise, Scott Schuford, in terms of an organization that's received a PPP loan, I do not know of any restrictions of those that have received PPP loans, but I think we need to confirm that when we send out the addenda. Kim Marmon, you've read the guidance. Are you familiar with that?
I do not believe that there is any restrictions for people who have received previous monies. This is to continue the recovery. So as long as they fall into the government entities or non-profits, then they should be eligible whether they've received PPP loans or not.
Thank you, Kim. Are private organizations eligible to apply? Is it a private nonprofit organization? If it has nonprofit status, I would think that would meet the eligibility.
It is not for profit.
I'm sorry?
Not for profit.
It is a non-for-profit? If it meets nonprofit eligibility status, I believe that would be a yes. D. Williams. Will city staff decide who gets the awards? Will these names of staff be listed prior to the bid submission? Ultimately, the decision about which organizations are funded will be a decision of city council. Staff will be involved in recommending awards, and Kim Marmon Sachs will be leading the effort to Kim, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, we intend to put together a team of people that includes members of the community to come up with a scoring rubric and the evaluation process, which we're in the middle of at the minute, so that it will encompass people from the community and also staff members and also legal to cover all the elements of answering this RFP and coming up with an evaluation score. And then the team that will do the evaluations or to make the recommendations to the council will be formed. It's a team yet to be formed, so the makeup of that is not entirely known right at this minute, but we will let people know who is going to be on that team.
And there's a second part of that question. Experience rate modifier of 20% is awarded to organizations with experience getting federal funds. Does this criteria all but obliterate new organizations, and particularly those led by historically marginalized people like African Americans in Asheville? And there's another question below that speaking to organizational qualifications of the current scoring system. organization's qualifications are listed on page 6, and that's the description we'd like to see addressed. Descriptions of how the experience and capabilities of your organization give you the qualifications to carry out the proposed project. What relevant projects has your organization successfully completed in the past? And describe what qualifications your organization has to manage federal funds, including any previous experience. I think what we can say is that is one piece of an overall scoring matrix. Kim, do you want to add anything to that?
No, because we've got the categories set out already. We've got the criteria that we need. So the scoring rubrics will be based on the 40-40-20 that is in the RFP that was on the presentation earlier. But there'll be very specific scoring based on each of those defined elements in the RFP.
Nick Epstein, clarifying, so private businesses can submit proposals. What we have said is nonprofit organizations or governmental entities can submit proposals. Out-of-state private businesses can apply in conjunction with a local fiscal agent. I think if you have a local fiscal agent that's a nonprofit partner, I think we'd have to see the scope of the project. I don't know that we can answer that any more specifically without seeing the actual proposal. But our expectation is that you would have a nonprofit partner in that. I don't know that I can answer that any more completely. Will the applicants have any additional opportunities for comment after the RFP submission? I think that's a Kim question.
I believe that at the moment there will not be additional opportunities after the RFP submission. We've extended the submission time by 2 weeks, hopefully so that you have almost a month after the addenda comes out. If we find in the meantime that there is a lot of questions that are still outstanding because of it's an interim final rule, and we also have the state rules to comply with as well. If there is more information coming out in the form of addenda or updates, then we may allow further information to be received by the people responding to the RFP. But at the moment, the intention is that after the date of submission, then that is the final, because we have to then get into evaluation and scoring at that point.
Other parts of that question, will additional attachments be permitted in submitting the RFP? We specified what needs to be included. We're looking for 7 pages plus the budget template, as well as the 2 addenda. So if you can include that within the limitation of 7 pages of your submission, you're welcome to do that. But you are limited in the amount of information you can provide in the RFP. Part 3 of that, RFP instructions indicate an organization may submit 1 RFP. Can an org be party to multiple proposals? I think what we are envisioning there is that we would have 1 lead organization for each RFP. Kim, I see you nodding.
Yes, that would be the intention. So one organization cannot submit multiple RFPs, but if they're partnering with other organizations who are submitting their own RFPs, then I guess, Brad, I don't know if you have an opinion about this. If they're partnering with other organizations that are submitting an RFP, is that eligible? I haven't seen anything that would say not, but it's 1 RFP per organization per se. But if you're partnering with other organizations, I don't see any reason why that couldn't be.
Yeah, Kim, I would agree with that and say that if you had what I will call loosely a joint venture or some sort of a partnership with one or another group of entities to submit a wholly separate and unique RFP response, that would not be prohibited.
Let's see, Beth, if you would, or if you, or maybe Kim, can you drop a link to the RFP in the chat, please?
I did. I can add it again.
Oh, no, I see it. Sorry. I hadn't gotten down there yet.
You're good.
Thank you, ma'am. Let's see. For nonprofits, can project administration and direct costs be included in the budget? Kim, do you know the answer to that?
Yes, they can.
Let's see. John Doherty, UNC Asheville is a state entity. The university cannot accept a contract term indemnifying another party. It's also self-insured. Is it possible to execute a contract addendum amending these clauses of the contract for governmental entities? I'm going to defer to Brad, but I believe the answer is yes. But Brad, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think that is absolutely correct, Frank. Obviously, there are some additional complexities that we don't have to go into completely now, but I think that is viable.
Alex Lawrence, Bloomworks. Are you open to any projects that do engagement and research with residents to figure out what kinds of services and programs will be most effective or useful? I'm not sure we can answer that without seeing the project proposal. Can you give any examples of projects that would fit into the community communication category? I do not know. Kim, do we have any? I don't think we've envisioned any specific projects.
I don't think we have. And it's kind of vague on the interim final rule about what that includes. So I think we need to do further investigation into that and put it in the addenda.
Peggy Weil, please clarify the contract term in section 4.1 is the grant term for a 4-year period, March 3 through December 31. Kim, I'm going to defer to you on that one. I think I know the answer, but feel free to go.
Yeah, the situation at the minute, as far as the rules through the that we have through the Treasury, is that the grant funds have to be attributed by December 2024, and the funds have to be used by December the 31st, 2026. That's as far as I know it. So yeah, we have to attribute all funds by December 2024. So we have to decide who's getting that money and where it's going to be used. And then the money has to be used by the end of December 2026. So projects can be shorter than that, but that's our time scale that we've been given by the Treasury.
Brendan Hughes, would nonprofit mental health services qualify under the domestic violence prevention category? Also, is there a suggested budget range for proposals? Let me take the second part first. We are not making suggestions of what your project budgets should be. I think you need to scope out your project and tell us what you need to make that successful. In terms of mental health services for domestic violence prevention, Kim or Brad, do you want to take that one?
So I think this links back to the previous question regarding what, if any, nonprofits are eligible. Our position at this point is nonprofits specifically are eligible. We are trying to take the most expansive view of that as possible. I will tell you that the Federal Act defines a nonprofit, and I'm going to read this to everyone so that they can hear this, as being the following: an organization in which no part of the net earnings of which ensure to the benefit of any member, founder, contributor, or individual, that has a voluntary board, that has an accounting system or a designated fiscal agent in accordance with the requirements established by the secretary, and that practice non-discrimination in the provision of assistance. Now, I will also say that although that may potentially exclude some nonprofits, there's additional language in the Act that says that the list of nonprofits under the definition I just read is not exclusive. So we are taking the approach that it is likely more expansive than that definition, but certainly if you qualify under those characteristics, regardless of what the actual purpose of your organization was, you would qualify.
Thank you, Brad. Shemeka Ebony, how strong will the effort for community co-design of scoring evaluation with existing timeline, is this part being prioritized? I think that's a Kim question.
Yes, it is being prioritized, and I started last week, so we're just kind of trying to get ahead of where we're at the moment, and this is the next focus. Once we got past the RFP process and answering these questions, then the focus is shifting to the scoring evaluation and the rubrics to build that, and which team is going to be there. It has been part of the discussion so far, and we are just looking at who should be on that team. So we will push on with that in the coming weeks to make sure that we've got community involvement.
Okay, Grant Millen. There are a few dozen, there are a few dozen executive directors on today's webinar who may submit plans for a big chunk of City of Asheville or Buncombe County government ARPA funds. Both COA and BCG asked for a wide array of proposal subjects. I wonder if our existing nonprofit pool in Buncombe really covers the range from housing to economic development to climate protection. There are diverse nonprofits here. However, it was pretty sudden that about 75 million between COA and ARPA funds appeared. I'm not sure there's a question there. Renee Fortner, Riverlink, for infrastructure projects, are design costs eligible if also requesting construction funding? Kim, do you know that one, or do we need to answer an addenda?
I think we need to answer an addenda. I do not know the answer to that.
Oh, I see your question, Grant. Your question is, you're wondering if local nonprofits can expend all that. We won't know until we see the proposals, I don't believe. I'm sorry, I'm reading through the rest of your comments there. That's the only question I'm seeing. Safi Martin, are capital projects eligible, real estate and brick and mortar? Kim?
I believe they are, but they are very specific in the interim final rule. There are some very specific instructions on that, so I think we'll have to get back. But I believe that they are eligible if they come under the categories and the detail in the interim final rule.
Eric Cameron, providing clarification on the grant period, 1 year, multi-year. I think it depends on the proposal. It will likely be written in the contract or in the agreement as a project term, but I think it depends on the proposal. I'm sorry, also go over insurance requirements. I think I can say this. I know we listed our terms and conditions here. With any agreement or contract, the city is going to require a certificate of insurance and indemnification. When we go to contract, we will work that out with our risk department, but we will be asking your organization to submit a certificate of insurance to the city of Asheville, naming us as additional insured. I hope that answers the question. The question from Riverlink, another question about PPP loans receiving an award under this RFP. I think what Kim said was we haven't seen anything that would restrict anyone who received PPP loans.
Yes, it very clearly says, Frank, that this is to continue the recovery. So it's not, it doesn't preclude people who have received funds from the CARES Act or whatever that have gone before.
Ms. Williams, I don't know where that echo is coming from. I'm not hearing it, but I apologize for that. We're in separate rooms if that tells you anything. Is there a maximum award amount? The short answer, I think, is yes. It caps out at the total amount of ARPA funds. But as far as what we are considering right now, we haven't really had a discussion about maximum award amounts. That is true, Kim. I haven't been in on all those conversations. Is that correct?
Yes.
Within the context of the grant, are city-owned trail greenways considered infrastructure? Brad, I think the answer is yes. Would you concur?
We may have to look into that a little further. There are some limitations on what would count as city infrastructure. So that may be one for updating our documentation, Frank.
Yes, sir. JP Chalarka, what are permitted uses for the funds, operational costs? Do capital expenditures qualify? The answer is yes in both cases, correct, Kim?
Yes, that's correct.
Can one nonprofit sponsor multiple submissions covering different categories? For example, nonprofit X teams with an engineer for a climate change stormwater submittal and another consultant for a small business recovery submittal. I'm going to defer to Kim on that one. We may have to come back to you on that, Scott.
Yeah, I think it's similar to the questions that was asked before. It depends how clearly it's defined that they're partnering, or because we're saying one submission per, well, one RFP per organization. But if you're partnering with other organizations that are doing multiple RFPs, then I think that's allowed. But whether one organization can sponsor multiple entities, are you saying that this would be one RFP submission, but with multiple parts of it? Was that Scott that was asking? Yeah. So Scott, were you implying that it was multiple submissions or one submission with multiple parts? So yeah, maybe we'll come back to that in the addenda.
Okay, moving on. I understand that some of the city's ARPA funds have already been allotted or committed. Can you say how much is still on the table or available to current applicants? You want me to take that, Frank? Yeah, go ahead, Kim.
I mean, I think at the moment the ARPA funding is being considered for some other projects that will not be competing in this RFP process, so that we know that. The amount that is being considered for other projects is still not determined. There's a lot of information that we're still gathering. So at this point, we don't know that. But the amount for this RFP process is not in competition with that other funding. Obviously, the overall funding is a finite amount, but we are trying to make sure that this RFP process goes for an amount that is equitable for everybody.
let's see, when a community group is fiscal agented by a nonprofit organization, is that organization disallowed from submitting a proposal on their own project as well as a project for the group they fiscal agent? Kim, you want to take that, or do you want to answer an addenda?
Probably in an addenda. I don't know, Brad, if you have an opinion about that.
I think that this may depend, at least initially, on if the two proposals are actually separate and unique.
Okay.
Again, we want to place the limit of one proposal per agency, and simply because there is a pass-through fiscal agent, that does not give leave to submit essentially two separate proposals from the same organization. So I would keep that in mind, but also we probably need to look a little more closely as to what additional, if any, limitations would apply. We can add that to the addendum.
Scott Shuford.
That's an answer to the earlier question that I asked of Scott, whether it was multiple submissions. If it is multiple submissions from the same organization, but covering different subjects, I don't know how we stand on that, Brad. I think we said one RFP per organization. Is that a correct statement?
I believe that's correct, Kim.
Okay.
Alice Naflich, if project budget is overfunded, are the monies to be returned for reallocation or forgiven? Kim, do you have?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I would say returned. If there's a specific budget that's been applied for and it's not used through the contractual agreement and the monitoring that will go on. Yeah, I think I'll hold off on answering that until I know a little bit more specific about how that works in the contract world.
And I do think it is dependent on how the contract would be written, whether it's reimbursement or fronting. But I think it would be appropriate to answer that in the addenda. Can you have more than one priority area? For instance, housing and workforce development. I think the short answer is yes. We'd love to see that. If it addresses more than one area, that would be great. Proposals will be accepted from any municipal corporation or other public body. Let's see. Want to confirm private for-profit companies cannot apply even when they are registered in the state and or they partner with a local organization that asks for a fiscal agent. Private for-profit companies are not eligible. Is that how you're reading it, Kim?
Yes, that's how I'm reading it. So if they are a fiscal agent for a not or a group that is a non-profit, then I don't know, but then they wouldn't be putting in the RFP. They would just be the fiscal agent. But if they are a for-profit organization that is putting in the RFP, then they would not be eligible.
Kim, I think this next one's for you. You mentioned that you are developing a more specific scoring rubric. Will that be released to applicants prior to the RFP deadline? If so, do you have a timeline for that release? I think I have to take that under consideration. I don't see any reason why we can't release the specific scoring rubric, but I don't know about prior to the RFP deadline, because that's the next kind of stage of the project, is to actually get those scoring rubrics together and to get the team together to do that. So I'm not sure about the timeline, but I have no reason not to actually give more details about the specific scoring rubric. If so, we would have to release it as an addenda.
Yeah.
And we are on a pretty tight timeline. If the city of Asheville doesn't award all funds by January 9th, are residual funds then available for rolling requests, or must the city return the funds to the U.S. Treasury? Kim, you want to take it?
Yeah, no, the decision for January the 9th is the initial awards. That's our schedule that we're working to. But technically, we have the funds from the Treasury until the end of this, which is December the 31st, 2026. So if we don't award all the funds on January the 9th, which is conceivably a possibility, then we will do rolling awards going forward from there.
Okay. Just to better understand, will it be possible for organizations to negotiate contract details such as the release of funds? I think what we need to see is what is your proposal? And the city of Asheville will have standard terms and conditions for the agreements that, and for the agreement, we will also have a scope of work based on your proposal. In terms of payment, I think you need to request what you are seeking as part of your proposal. Are the RFP submissions done on a website? If so, can you send the link? No, they are not. The RFP submissions should be sent to the ARPA-RFP@asheville.nc.gov email address. So everything is being submitted. Questions as well as your submissions need to be sent to that email address. Thank you, Beeks. Are city departments eligible to apply or partner? The answer is yes. Any other questions? And certainly when we wrap up here, this is not the end of the question period. You have until the 18th to submit any additional questions. October 18th to submit any additional questions, and all questions are going to be answered via the addenda. Kim, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I've recorded all the questions that have come in so far on a spreadsheet. All the ones from the chat today, I will add to that spreadsheet, and then the team will work. The team will work together to make sure that we have the definitive answers out on the addenda that comes out on October the 20th. But everything that has been said today and everything that gets sent in the interim period, and also the stuff that has already come in, is being recorded all together in one place so that we can get the definitive answers out to you all by October the 20th.
Okay. So the RFP addenda, as we mentioned, that's going to be posted. It's going to be posted to the I'm sorry, I updated this on my own version and I didn't get it updated here, so my apologies. So the questions and answers will be posted via addenda. You still have time to email in your questions. That goes to the ARPA RFP at asheville.nc.gov. That's in chat as well as right here. I want to just make this very clear. It's your responsibility to review the addenda for updated information. Things are certainly in flux, and we're receiving new guidance almost daily. So if something changes, we will update that via addenda. Just pay attention to that website. I see there's a hand up for JP Shalarka.
Yes, that's me. JP's fine.
Okay.
During the conversation, I heard a deadline of 11:15, and in the website, I see a deadline of 11:01. Is there a disparity somewhere?
Yes, we will be updating that via the addenda by next week, and thanks for pointing that out. That decision was just made. We wanted to update everyone on this call, but it is definitely a deadline for submission of 11:15. We'll be updating that soon.
And
Thank
Frank,
you.
there was one more question in the chat that popped up while you were talking from Jennifer.
Is the city earmarking funding amounts per eligible categories? Kim?
At this junction, no. We are going to see what proposals we get in and have a look at the scoring rubrics and the evaluation from there. And then we will talk to council about specifically what they want to do about the categories, whether there's going to be a set amount per category or whether it will be the ones that fit the rubrics and score the most on the evaluation will be the ones that are awarded. We just have the categories that you have to be part of, one of those categories to actually apply. But at the moment, there isn't specific funds in each categories of a specific amount.
Okay. I apologize. There's a blank on this slide, but we've reiterated this information multiple times. But I do want to say the proposals are due on November 15th, and they should be submitted to that email address that is shown there. These updates will be made to the bid page as soon as we post the addenda, and that will be happening on the 20th. Kim?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate about the fact that there is a lot of information in the RFP document that went out in the first place, and that there will be a lot more information in the addenda as well. So please pay close attention to that before submitting your RFPs, because that will help.
And Kim, I think we have one last question from Safi Martin in the chat. Will city staff be recommending projects to council for funding? Or
We will go through sorry, Frank. We'll be going through the rubrics and the evaluation, and then yes, we will make the recommendations from that scoring and evaluation process to the council, and then they will vote on what they want to fund. So the ultimate decision is with the council, but we will make the recommendations from the team that are doing the evaluation and the scoring.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. Please pay attention to the addenda that will be posted on the City of Asheville's bid page. And again, if you have any other questions that may have been prompted by this presentation, please submit those to the email address, and they'll be addressed in the addenda on the 20th. So next slide, please, Beth. So we want to talk about other funding opportunities that are available. And at this point, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Dawa Hitch with the City of Asheville.
Almost forgot to unmute. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking this time to learn more and be in this space to ask questions. We wanted to take this opportunity tonight to start to do things a little bit differently. We've heard from the community through the years that we as a city often do many one-off meetings, and that can be exhausting for the community. So this tonight is an effort for us to approach this in a different way. So the ARPA funding has some very specific specifications, and we wanted to make sure the community know that there are other funding opportunities available both through the city of Asheville and Buncombe County that are available for the community so that we've got a full understanding of all the opportunity that's out there. So thank you for sticking around for this part of it. It's really an opportunity to share information and for you to ask any questions you have about other funding opportunities. And again, just appreciate you being here. I may have gotten excited and jumped right in without fully introducing myself to any of the folks on the call that we've not met. My name's Dowa Hitch, and I serve as the Communication and Public Engagement Director for the City of Asheville. So thank you again for being here. I hope you find this information valuable. And if there's something else you'd like to know about, you're always free to reach out to me and certainly anybody in our team, any of the folks in our Neighborhood Services Department or on our Neighborhood Services team that are out in community often. So thanks again. I'm going to now turn the time over to Miss Rachel Nygaard, who is joining us today from Buncombe County Government, and she's going to share some of the opportunities that county government has where they are investing in community.
Thanks, Dawa. Hi, everybody. It's Rachel Nygaard here. Pleased to meet those of you who I haven't worked with before, although I recognize some familiar names of people and organizations, so great to reconnect. I work with Buncombe County Government, not with City of Asheville, but we partner together on a lot of the same issue areas and projects and have some similar funding streams. And if you're with a nonprofit organization or a government organization that's eligible to apply for the city's ARPA funds, that means you're also within Buncombe County. So wanted to just take a minute. I won't go into a ton of detail about these funding opportunities, but introduce them so you're familiar and you've seen and heard the names of them, and you've got a place that you can turn to for more information. So like Dawa said, please feel free to contact me directly if you think of questions. My name is Rachel Nygaard. I think it is written on your screen, but my email address I will put in the chat. There we go. I work as Strategic Partnerships Director, and our office is sort of like a grants office for Buncombe County. And Buncombe County, like City of Asheville, did receive from the U.S. Treasury some ARPA funds, these local fiscal recovery funds. The county's allocation is around $51 million. Many of your organizations submitted proposals through the county's RFP process. Some initial awards have been made, and we have rolling awards. So projects are still under consideration, and you can link to the site and follow along at buncombecounty.org/grants. On that same site, you can see links to these 8 other grant programs, which are mostly annual grants, and they're funded. These 8 other programs represent about $10 to $11 million in annual funding that comes either from local tax dollars or pass through state or federal dollars. It varies by grant program. The Affordable Housing Services Program is within this portfolio of funding. It funds development and repair and various housing type services in partnership with our planning office. The Aging Services Funding, this is one that has some federal pass-through dollars through the Home and Community Care Block Grants. So in partnership with our local Health and Human Services, we support organizations that provide home and community-based care and support to older adults. The community recreation grants are just like what they sound. Through our recreation office, Parks and Rec, organizations can apply for funding for wellness and recreation projects. The Early Childhood Fund is the largest of these annual grant programs at between $3.5 and $4 million worth of annual grants to providers that are supporting early care and education. So infant, toddler, all the way up through pre-K services and supports for kids and families. Isaac Coleman grants are focused on building equitable outcomes in our community. Those grants are actually multi-year. So you won't see those grants open up for application in the spring like you will all the others, because we're in year 2 of a 3-year grant cycle. Juvenile Crime Prevention Council. This has some pass-through funds. These go to local groups who are working on public safety for youth. Strategic Partnerships are our most general purpose grant. Essentially, nonprofits, anyone that's working toward goals that line up with our strategic plan, which covers education, economy, environment, and well-being. So pretty inclusive. A lot of different types of projects get strategic partnership grants. And finally, tipping point grants, which are designed to be smaller awards. These are $5,000 grants for ideas to help increase resiliency in the community. And a lot of the tipping point grant ideas are led by individuals that partner with a fiscal sponsor to make their project happen. So a real range from small to very large, and lots of different topic areas. If you'd like help finding where your organization would best fit, drop me a line. My email address is in the chat, and I'm happy to hear from you anytime. And thanks to my partners at the city for the invitation to include the county tonight.
Rachel, it looks like there's 2 quick questions in the chat for you.
At the risk of turning this into a question and answer about Buncombe County's ARP, I'm going to answer these couple questions. And if you have others, maybe contact me after the session. So the first question is, how long do we expect Buncombe County to be accepting ARPA proposals? At this time, there is not an open application. We did an application round in the summer, and we haven't yet determined whether or not additional applications and when additional applications will be open. At this point, the rolling awards are being made based on applications that were already submitted. And it looks like the second question is similar. So I think that covers it, Beth.
Wonderful. Rachel, thank you so much for joining us tonight and sharing information about these great opportunities available through the county. Really appreciate having you here. All right, we are now going to move on to an opportunity that's available through the city of Asheville. I'm really excited to introduce to you all a new member of our communication and public engagement team. Newish. Jeremy's been here long enough that I think he's moved past new, and he certainly hit the road running. And he is serving in an interim role right now as the community engagement neighborhood services manager. And it's through that division of our department that we've got this new opportunity of neighborhood matching grants. And to give you just a little bit of background, this too came from input we were getting from the community. It came from the input we received through the Reimagining Public Safety effort that we went through about almost, it's coming on 2 years now. I think I'm losing track of time, but finding ways to get out into neighborhoods where neighborhoods can self-actualize is really important. And Jeremy's put a lot of work into this with his team. And Jeremy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Doe. So hello, everyone. My name is Jeremy Lett, and I work in our neighborhood services department. I'm going to talk a little bit about the neighborhood matching grants and some of the eligibility requirements. So first, we're allowing up to $5,000 for eligible neighborhood-based organizations. So this can be a homeowners association, residents council. This can be a neighborhood coalition. We're allowing up to $5,000 for a neighborhood matching grant. And so the eligibility requirements to get the grant is you must complete the neighborhood registration form. That can be found on our neighborhood services page. And the next thing, you have to be within the Asheville city limits. And so those are the only two eligibility requirements that we're asking grantees to meet, to require. The projects can range from landscaping to public safety and everything in between. We're really asking individuals to get creative. And the only thing we're sort of tying to that is whatever you apply for must be completed within 12 months. And so, again, up to $5,000 for these grants. And this particular application opened on the 1st. It closes on the 31st of this month. And we will be doing it again in March. So the application will open March the 1st and it'll close the end of the month as well. And so this is for the grants, again, asking people to get really creative. We are really looking forward to working with communities. We're really hoping that these projects will get the community involved, really get feedback from the community, get a lot of input and sort of spark that idea of volunteering and getting to know your neighbors. And we really are looking forward to this because this is the first time the city of Asheville has done this. And we're really looking forward to just supporting communities and doing projects locally and in their community. So really looking forward to doing the work. If there are any questions, please contact neighborhoods at asheville.nc.gov, or if you have any questions now, I know I kind of sped through that. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
All right, so I'm not seeing any questions, and if there are, I do know Jeremy's got a meeting that he needs to be at. Beth has put the email address that Jeremy mentioned in the chat, and if something comes up as we work through some of these other grant processes, Jeremy will certainly make sure that we capture those for you, and that way you can reconnect with the folks who are in the call if they've got an idea that comes up a little bit later in tonight's program. So thanks so much for sharing that. We're all looking forward to seeing how that program grows and develops. So we'll move on now if there are no questions. Our next opportunity, we've got Paul D'Angelo from our Community and Economic Development Department here in the city, and he's going to share with you some of the funding opportunities or investments that are being made through that department's work.
Good afternoon, everybody. Paul D'Angelo, Economic Development Department. Thanks so much, and kudos to Dawa and Frank and Kim for having this opportunity to talk about other funding. So really appreciate that. So quickly, with community development, we've got a couple additional funding sources for local agencies in particular. Community development block grant funding. We have home investment partnership funds, strategic partnership funds, which are a bit on hold. And then for us, always just a reminder about ways to get involved and hear more about potential funding opportunities that either coming from us or our way or from some of our partners. So quickly, community development block grant funding is an annual grant that comes from HUD to localities and states to assist in the development of viable communities. These viable communities are achieved by providing decent housing, a suitable living environment, and expanded economic opportunities to the community. The city receives the funding, and then through an application and grant process, we get that funding back out into the community. 15% of the money is set aside for public services. The rest of the funding usually goes to housing services and economic development opportunities, as well as potentially some real estate opportunities. We usually get about $1 million a year to grant out. We recently, as you can see on your screen, we did a training in just about 2 weeks ago. And I've attached the agenda there as well as the presentation so you can learn more about this funding and how possibly you or your agency can work with it. Home investment partnership funds are basically for the preservation, protection of affordable housing, preserve, protect, and produce affordable housing. I've got a link to a workbook there that we use internally that really talks about home funding and CDBG funding work together to create affordable housing, a big topic in our community. A lot of the home funding goes towards that production of affordable housing, but also things like tenant-based rental assistance. We also have strategic partnership funds. Currently, there's about $400,000 in this pot of funding. HCD, the Housing and Community Development Committee, has wanted to focus this on closing the opportunity and achievement gap in our schools, as well as putting out grants of no less than $25,000. This is a different focus than it was a few years back, but we are trying to figure out the best use of this funds to close that opportunity achievement gap. It's been a bit on hold. We should have more direction on that hopefully by the end of the year, but try to figure out exactly how that can work in the community. So if you're part of a group or agency with educational work, there may be some opportunity there. And then just last but not least, that link there is to our website, which talks more about these tools. There is an affordable housing tab as well on resources available, not only for folks looking for rental assistance, but more importantly on how to partner with the city to preserve, produce, and protect affordable housing. There's also a section there to sign up for our community development listserv. That's our email address so that we can send out emails about other potential funding opportunities that are available, the work of the community development department, and other grant opportunities that may be out there. So we always ask that people stay involved with us. There's good knowledge to be shared. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions from the team or the community.
Looks like you got one in the chat there, Paul.
I will check it out. Let's see. Strategic partnership grants are no less than $25,000, which translates to just about 16 grants or less are made or less if some grantees. That is correct. And so in the past, the grants went out for as low as $1,300, just aligned with some one of the city's goals that they had, like affordable housing or energy efficiency, well-suited environment, et cetera. When it comes to closing the opportunity or achievement gap, the council members on HCD felt it was very important that that needed to be strategic and an amount that could make a difference. So right now, that is the framework. Could be subject to change, again, as we try to explore avenues for spending this funding and partnering in this funding. But for right now, that is correct.
All right, I don't see any other hands raised. Again, just would like to invite anyone, if something sparks as we continue through any of the following presentations, please do put it in the chat and we can make sure that we get you connected with the presenter to answer any of those questions. So thanks, Paul. There's a lot going on in community and economic development when it comes to investing in community, and really appreciate you being here to share these opportunities, especially with the strategic partnership funds, which is going to look a little bit different this year. So the more times we can share, and if anybody on this call has colleagues or networks, people in your networks that have applied for that funding before, we can always use the community's help in getting out information. And so now we've got this connection to Paul and his team and the work they're doing. So thanks again, Paul.
You're welcome, Dawa, and we appreciate the community's patience as we work through that to figure out the best way to strategically spend those partnership funds. So thank you.
Fantastic. Okay. So we are ahead of time. And the next person that I'd like to introduce to you is also in the Community and Economic Development Department, and that is Ms. Rosanna Mulcahy. She's the Business Inclusion Manager for the City of Asheville, and she's going to talk with you about some of the work that her office does and some areas where connections can be made for funding opportunities within our business community. Thank you, Rosanna, for being here.
Hi, thank you, Dawa. Good evening, everyone. I wanted to take this time to speak about some programs and workshops and classes that we have coming up. One of them is with the NCDOT. A lot of people come to the city of Asheville asking me how to start working with NCDOT, how to get certified, how to access opportunities through them. So we put this workshop together. with the assistance of the Office of Civil Rights, the Small Business Transportation Resource Center, of course, the City of Asheville, and AV Tech Small Business Center. The PowerPoint, the presentation has the links for the classes. I'm also doing a 3-part series. Also, I get a lot of people wanting to do business with the city, and often their product or service is not qualified to do business with the city, but they may qualify to do business with a different government agency. So it's a 3-part series, also in partnership with the AV Tech Small Business Center. And each part takes you through different processes and gives you ideas to leverage your business in the contracting with government portion of things. And then a program that we're really proud of is the AVL Pathways to Grow. This is an application process. There are some guidelines written on this presentation as to what we're looking for. We're looking for businesses that are not startups. We're looking for businesses that are at that next stage of business, of growth. Some people ask us, why are you bringing this when there's other programs by like Mountain Biz Works, like Scale Up and stuff like that? Our program is different. Our program has a high concentration on contracting and procurement, relationship building, and access to capital. And that's what makes this program different than other programs that are currently available in the community. Next slide. One partner that I usually work with, and they do great work here in North Carolina, is NCIDEA, and a lot of you may already know them. They provide grants for ecosystem builders and for entrepreneurs. And here I have listed some of the grants and opportunities through training and workshops and stuff like that that they offer to I said, to entrepreneurs and to the ecosystem builders, so that there's a good place for you to find grants and other information to help your business or to help your organization. And then finally, my information in case someone has a question. Thank you.
Did anybody have any questions for Rosanna while we have her here? Ms. Williams, hi Dee. Oh, I think you might be muted.
I'm sorry, how are you?
Fantastic, I hope you are too.
I am well, thank you, and glad to be here, and thank everybody for just having this today. Thank all of you. My question just goes out to the fact that we have a very large consortium now, predominantly African-American churches and nonprofit organizations. And one of the things that two things we specialize in, and they're 501c3s, there are 2 of them that are, and then the others are North Carolina nonprofits. And I just asked this question, since the city set its own procurement and contracting program up, those of us who have, this organization does provide technical assistance to specific low-income businesses, but specifically African-American businesses throughout Asheville and Western North Carolina. Since you have your own program and you're going to probably be doing the scoring rubrics, would just to enter a proposal, is that something, since we do have a track record and we have defined results from the Department of Commerce and in our dealings with the city, as we did get the first African-American to contract with the city of Asheville and some other things with Buncombe County, would it be wise to just spend time trying to put in a proposal at all, being that the city has its own program? Is that wise? Because we were talking about this in a meeting, and we will be having a meeting about this tomorrow, and I'm just going to report back. We want to try to spend our time in the best way possible. So I asked that question. Is that a logical or realistic thing to do since the city is taking this service on?
I don't know if that's a question for me because I really can't answer.
Yeah.
But so maybe someone else. Well, I can give my opinion. I think that if you're working with more startup businesses, yes, I think that it would be worth it. I'm not selecting the projects or anything, so I couldn't go into those details, but this is more for businesses that are not startups. This is for businesses that are already at the scaling up phase of their business. So I don't think that there'll be a conflict, but that's just my opinion, Ms. D.
Well, I tell you what, the reason why I'm asking is because we do have, our track record has been that we start these businesses up, but we take them to $1 million. We have several $1 million babies, and we started them out as new businesses just starting. The problem that we found was that a lot of them didn't know how to bid, and they didn't know how to network and go get a dollar. So I'm just asking that. There's no need for us to compete with the city if the city is going to be doing this kind of work, because we'd be at a gross disadvantage. The only advantage that we would have, and because we're going out into other governments as well. But I asked that question because we have put forth some proposals, and we're probably the most skilled procurement and contracting officials in Western North Carolina. And we've never been able to get a contract from the city in either category. So this is the discussion that's happening tomorrow with these 100 Black churches throughout Western North Carolina, is that they are looking at funding and they're looking at what is the highest and best use of their time. And that's why I asked the question. I don't know. I mean, based on the data that we have, we don't see where there are a lot of particularly Black-owned companies that are getting any proliferation of contracts nor procurements from the city of Asheville, and Buncombe County certainly not, because they don't even keep a database. So that's the reason why we ask. And so I'm just asking so I can have something to take back to this group, because they are having a large session tomorrow here in town in person. So that's one reason why I attended today too. And that's why I'm asking. So you're saying that we do startups and we do businesses that are up to $1 million. So that's why I'm asking that. And I mean, because we haven't been successful before and we don't want to waste our time. We're just asking that question.
All right. So did that give some insight, Dee, to your question? So I'm trying to picture. I
think we can probably try, but
okay.
Anything you can try. But when you look at the data, these firms are not successful here, at least in the people that we're talking to. And so we can try, but I don't think, I just don't want to waste their time, and I don't want to waste our time. But and that's just a whole nother conversation.
Right.
Thanks.
It's a great point, and I'm glad that you raised it, right? Because time is precious, and I know everyone. I can't think of a person that I know or bump into who is not struggling with how to balance all of these demands on our time. And so as we wrap up this portion of tonight's event, I just want to invite everybody again. We are constantly learning, we're growing and adapting as an organization, your City of Asheville government. And we want to deliver information and have opportunities for the community to share with us what works for you. So tonight was an attempt to move in a better, more strategic direction. And if you have any feedback, we'd love to hear it. And my email again is in the chat. You're always welcome to reach out there, and we'll keep growing and adapting and doing our best to meet what the actual needs are of the community, as opposed to assuming that we know, right, without having connected with people to hear specifically from them. So again, we invite your feedback. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be here tonight. We covered a lot, and it will be this meeting was recorded, and the slideshow will also be available on that page. So anybody can go back and reference the information. And I did want to say just one more time that the official response to all of the questions is through the addenda for the ARPA funding. So please do. So we had that opportunity to dialogue about that here tonight. And then the team's going to go back. They're going to take all the questions that were asked or have been submitted through email and other ways. They're going to post all of them with the answers. So everybody's got the same information. So if you know somebody that's interested, you can always ask them to check into this page and it will have that updated information. So, staff team, did anybody else have any parting thoughts before we all move into the next part of our evening with our families and friends or whoever we're going to be with? Kat?
Yes, thank you, Dara, for that. That's great. I think having the extra opportunities in there as well helps a lot.
Okay. All right. Appreciate you all of you. Have a great evening.
Bye now.
Thank you.